Greetings, fellow songwriters and seekers, and welcome back to Muse and Measure. If you haven't done so yet, please hit that subscribe button down below. Great White Shark from Xi'an, China writes, could you explain and discuss Alan Watts' take on listening to music from the Taoist way of dropping out from karma? Thank you very much. That's an excellent question to bring up and an excellent point. So Alan Watts has this incredible series of talks that I think anyone who's a spiritual seeker should check out. There's a whole collection of them. I'll put a link down below. There's a podcast about them. If you've got the Sam Harris Waking Up app, there's also an Alan Watts collection there. Alan Watts is just an incredible mind, and he had an amazing breadth of knowledge about all things spiritual, and really had an incredible grasp on the connectivity between all the world's religions. And you really get the esoteric teachings from him and not just the usual kind of literal readings of things and the kind of, worshipful aspects of the religion. You really get the kernel of what the spiritual truth is through his teachings. And so he's a great person if you're new to any one of the disciplines, like say the Bhagavad Gita or even the Tao Te Ching or any great spiritual tradition, in this case Taoism. It's a great introduction and really cuts to the heart of it, so that when you read other works by it, you'll have a nice foundation and also have the right perspective, one where you don't get hung up in the nitty-gritty details or thinking literally about it, but you really encapsulate the true meaning of the teaching, or you get an encapsulated version of it. So this pertains to this series on YouTube because we've been looking at songwriting and music, and today we're going to look at the actual process of listening to music, which goes hand in hand with songwriting. And it's good to take the seat of the listener every once in a while. I know the more experience you have as a songwriter or producer of music, it can very easily kind of pigeonhole your mind, or you get caught up in the thinking like a musician or thinking like a songwriter. I know for a long time when I went to go see live shows, like I'd get hung up on the sound system and thinking about, the vocals are too low, just kind of analyzing the mix and kind of missing the music because of that. And it's kind of a conscious effort that I have to make now to not do that. So listening to music and also just looking at our mental state as we're listening to music is a great meditative and spiritual practice that you can do. And it will also help your songwriting and your musicianship. First of all, to take on the perspective of the listener and experience it as the pure listener who's not a musician, not a musical producer, but also just to see what goes on. We've been talking about inevitable melodies and listener expectation. Well, it's time we take a look at our own expectations and see what's going on in our mind as we listen to music. So in this talk, Alan Watts describes music as a model for living spiritually. He connects it with the Wu Wei. And of course, this talk is about Taoism, so he's framing it with that. So Wu Wei is effortless action and Li, organic pattern. So it's really like that one note flows to the next. When a melody and a piece of music really works well, it's completely effortless. It doesn't sound like, somebody put in hours and hours clunking away at it. It just feels effortless. And one note just naturally and inevitably flows from the other one. So it's just some incredible kind of Taoist view of this, where it's just being in the way and being in the flow of things. And I know as a musician, when I'm in the flow, or when I'm writing songs, when I'm in this flow, things just naturally come, or they have the feeling of that. Of course, it takes years and years of practice and hours of effort and time again of frustration to kind of get the mind that's attuned to be able to be in the flow and not be so hung up on every little technical detail. And that's what we're all working towards. But when you get in that flow moment, it's absolutely incredible, and some of the best work comes from that. So music also, when we listen to it, has the same quality. And really kind of the main point that Alan Watts makes in this talk is that instead of like the means to an end, it becomes an end in itself. We don't listen to music necessarily. I hope you don't listen to music as a means to an end. Like, if I listen to this music, I'm going to make $1 million, or I'm going to get my job done. Of course, we might use music for motivational purposes, like if we're exercising, to kind of get our mind away from the kind of drudgery and the pain of exercising and focus on something pleasurable. Also to give us a groove and a beat and a rhythm to exercise with. But music in itself is really a great spiritual path. And Alan Watts is really arguing that our whole life should be modeled the way we listen to music, that we should be dancing with life, as opposed to doing it, as a means to an end. Same thing he says about exercise. You shouldn't go out running just, so I can get in shape, so I can, live a healthier, longer life. All those are valid points. But the real point is that the joy of the actual process and the experience of it. And if you take on that kind of approach to everything you do, and in light of what this series is about, that you do that with songwriting, then life just becomes much more joyful and the process becomes much more joyful. And so if we can remind ourselves to do that, it really will take the drudgery out of life and the drudgery of all of our work and make it much more of a joyful thing. Now, of course, there's still going to be drama and pain and anxiety and self-doubt and all the drama of stuff. But if we embrace this end in itself, this process, as something that we can just enjoy and dance with and think of it like music, then we'll be much more fulfilled. I highly recommend that you have as a daily practice or a weekly practice or just something that's regular, where you set aside time to listen to a song or listen to a movement from a classical piece or any type of music, where that's all you're doing and your sole focus is just on the experience of listening. And it really is meditation, because you can also feel and sense yourself being caught in thought. A thought bubble pops up, then all of a sudden you're hooked by it. You follow that thought, you forget that you were listening to music, and all of a sudden, like, the whole song's over, and then you're reminded, I was supposed to be listening to music. And I don't know if you do this, but this will happen to me as I'm listening to a song, and then I'll go, I missed that whole section, and I rewind it and listen to that section again. And then hopefully this time I can stay focused on it. But it's a great meditative exercise to really listen with your full focus and your full mind, and to try to treat it like a meditation, where that is your object of meditation and you're not distracted by other things. A lot of times people listen to music while they're doing other things. It's like a background music. Even though they might be singing along and enjoying it, they're in a state of discursive thought where they're doing some other activity or chore, and they're really using music as a means to help with that and to make it more pleasant. But not to take away from that, it's good to just have a regular practice where, just take one song a night and really focus on it and listen to it. And this would be great for songs that you admire or songs that you've heard are good, and you want to study a little bit. It would be really useful to do this as a meditative practice. So why not tonight? Pick one song, listen to it, and really just try to listen to it as it comes by. You're not trying to rush to the end of it. This is a point that Alan Watts brings up. You're not trying to get to the end of it. It's not a means to an end. The process itself, the listening, the joy of the unfolding of music is the whole purpose. And so that's a great spiritual lesson and a great life lesson for us, if we can treat life like that. Then we won't get to the end of our lives and go, that went by so quick and I didn't really even feel like I experienced it, or I didn't really live it. I was always thinking about what's coming next or thinking about something else in the moment. So I want to read this paragraph from Alan Watts and just kind of savor some of the things he says. So thought, nin, describes what we call in our world the stream of consciousness. Blocking consists in letting the stream become connected or chained together in such a way that when the present thought arises, it seems to be dragging its past or resisting its future by saying, I don't want to go. When the connection or the dragging of these thoughts stop, You have broken the chain of karma. So every thought leads to another. And, as a new thought arises, it's somehow connected to a past thought. And it seems like a natural chain of events. It's fun to think about this when you're having a conversation with somebody or a group of people, and you get to a topic and you have a moment where you're aware of the conversation. You're like, how did we get on this topic? Where did we start from? How did it connect to these other things? And you can see how thoughts lead one from the other, and they just feel like they have a natural flow to them. Well, he's saying that when you can stop that train of thoughts, it's the dissolution of karma. I don't know what we think about that. That's quite a claim, but you can see that in the moment it is a dissolution of karma. That it's just like it's cutting this chain of cause and effect, and it's just having a moment of awareness where you have a true blank slate, where your current state of being is not dependent on what just happened. You're not reacting to what just happened or thinking about something you were just thinking about. You were just being in the moment. If you think of this in comparison with certain problems in music, it is very interesting, because when we listen to music, we hear melody only because we remember the sequence. We hear the intervals between the tones, but more than that, we remember the tones that led up to that one we are now hearing. We are trained musically to anticipate certain consequences, and to the extent that we get the consequences, we anticipate it, we feel that we understand the music. But to the extent that the composer does not adhere to the rules and gives us unexpected consequences, we feel we don't understand the music. If he gives us harmonic relationships that we are trained not to accept or expect, we say, well, this man is just writing garbage. Of course, it becomes apparent that the perception of music and the ability to hear melody will depend upon our relationship between past, present, and future sounds. You might say, well, you're talking about a way of living that would be equivalent to listening to music with a tone-deaf mind, so that you would eliminate the melody and have only noise. In your Taoist way of life, you would eliminate all meaning and have only senseless present moments. Up to a point, that is true. That is, in a way, what Buddhists also mean by seeing things in their suchness. So what does he mean by all this? So he's relating to the way our minds are chaining thoughts together, and this cause and effect relationship of one thought leading to another, one action leading to another. This is the chain of karma that we're trying to escape. And he's relating this to music, in that when we listen to a melody or a song, what came before what we're hearing right now informs it, and we remember it, so it kind of builds on it. And that's what's really wonderful about music, is that you keep that memory in mind, and then it kind of tells a nice story and you let it unfold naturally. Well, I think that you can have both, and you can have both in life. That it's not this direct dichotomy, black and white duality, that, where you have discursive thought and you have pure awareness. What you really get is kind of a combination of both, and that is our natural state of being. We're never going to stop thought completely. You might have some moment where you are thoughtless or thoughts are not consuming you, but there's always going to be these thought bubbles that pop up. And that does not mean that we have to be disappointed or we have to be discouraged by this and think that, oh, we're never going to become enlightened, or we're never going to see the truth, we're never going to find peace. That actually these are happening at the same time. But just like the quote within the quote says, that if you are hung up that, oh, this composer is not following the rules, or I'm expecting this to happen, say there's, a 5-1 and they give you a deceptive cadence, or they play something that's atonal or out of the key, or they change keys on you, or the story shifts, and the lyrics don't rhyme the way you expected them to. Well, you could get hung up on that, and you could be resentful of this composer, or think that they are just trash and you don't like their music. That's fine and valid, I guess. Or you could just write it and enjoy the process and enjoy the unexpected surprise. And this is not only true when you're listening to music or when you're meditating, but just in life in general. Things are impermanent, they're constantly changing. A lot of times they adhere to our expectations and are loyal to them, or fall in line with our expectations. But life is full of surprises, and thank God, thank goodness for that, because otherwise life would be quite boring. Now it's up to us and our mental state about how we react to that, whether we have this negative reaction, like the person who doesn't like the way the composition went, or whether we actually embrace it and enjoy it and savor it. And yeah, we remember what we expected. That's part of it too. That thought was there. And you can be aware of that. And that's kind of the joy of it. When you watch a great movie and you're expecting this to happen, it's all leading to this. Your mind's making these connections, these concepts. You are really immersed in the story because you have a perceived outcome that you want to happen. Then all of a sudden, something totally unexpected happens. Well, you could be really disappointed and mad by it, or you can enjoy it and savor it and write it out and just go with the flow of things and be delighted by it. So that's what music has to teach us. And music really is this deep connection to something that is much more spiritual. In fact, Nietzsche in The Birth of Tragedy talks about it's this connection to the sublime, this other, I wouldn't say otherworldliness, but this outside of what we can even comprehend. It connects us with something that's so big that we are somehow connected to that we can't even comprehend it in our minds. And instead of this being something that is alienating or disturbing and makes us run back into our little hovels, it is a chance for us to have some kind of life-affirming experience. And it connects us with some kind of sense of divinity. Not necessarily that you have to believe in divinity, but something greater than you, or greater than your petty little thoughts and your day-to-day discursive thoughts about what you're going to do. Oh, that jerk said that to me, or oh, I lost face in this moment. It's really about connecting you to this deeper awareness, which you can experience at any time. And the real benefit of having a lifelong practice of meditation is that you have longer and longer experiences of this basic awareness, and you see what the real state of your mind is. It's not this flurry and this blizzard of thoughts and associations. It's this incredible, sublime ground of being. And music affirms that. If you just go for the ride fully and you embrace it and you grab a hold of the reins and you let it take you where it's going to go. And so that's why we should make time to do this and really try to do music as a meditation. Also in songwriting, you can do this. Let it go where it wants to go. Listen to the music, the voice of the music, and follow where it wants to take you. Obviously, you can guide it, and when it doesn't know where it wants to go, you can nudge it in certain directions, or you can have certain concepts about where you think it should go. But you really can just let the music flow. And that I found as a songwriter that my best songs, my best moments are when the song told me where I was to go next. And sometimes it won't tell you for weeks and weeks and weeks, and you got to be patient. That's why I like the short songwriting sessions best, because if I sit for hours and hours with one song, I get into kind of a taskmaster mindset where I'm trying to force the song to my will and to get it done just for the sake of getting it done. So at that point, it's a means to an end. The music is a means to an end of checking a song off my list so I can add it to my repertoire, record it, get that next album done, moving in that direction. Well, no, I've got to let the song take as long as it's going to take. And I remember on this album that just came out this week, there's the first song called Tide Song that took months and months and months to finish because I just had to let it go where I wanted to go. All right, well, check out Alan Watts, and I highly recommend a musical meditation practice once a day, once a week. And it's a joyous thing. It's giving yourself time to actually enjoy music, which is, I assume if you're watching this video, that's something that you want to be a part of your life. And you really love music. So why not take time to actually savor it and not just have it be something that you never get back to. All right, well, best of luck with this practice of music and with meditation and with your songwriting. And I will see you next time on Muse and Measure. All right, take care.